Welcome to The Critical Path, Project Management and Leadership in Complex Environments, the podcast where we explore how leadership and project management come together to deliver complex projects when failure simply isn't an option. I'm your host, Isaac Alcaide. Hello! Today we are going to explore a question that challenges some of the fundamental assumptions of modern management. Can we really manage complexity, or should we instead learn to lead within it? If you've ever worked in a large program, a defense system, an innovation initiative, or any organization facing uncertainty, you've probably felt it. That growing realization that the tools, charts, and control mechanisms that once gave us confidence suddenly start to fall short. Deadlines slip, dependencies multiply, stakeholders shift their priorities, cause and effect become blurred. What used to be difficult, complicated, becomes complex. In traditional management, complexity is often treated as a problem to be tamed, something we can manage through better structures, clearer reporting lines, or tighter control. But what if this framing is fundamentally flawed? What if the nature of complexity means that it cannot be fully managed, only understood, navigated, and led through continuous adaptation? Today, we'll look at how complexity differs from complication, why traditional management struggles in complex environments, and how leadership behaviors, not control mechanisms, become the real differentiators of success. We'll talk about concepts like emergence, feedback loops, and sense-making, and we'll explore how leaders can build teams that thrive in uncertainty. By the end of this episode, my goal is for you to feel more comfortable not having all the answers, to see complexity not as chaos, but as an environment where leadership, trust, and learning can shine. Let's begin. Right, okay. We often use the word complex when we really mean complicated. A jet engine is complicated. Thousands of parts, each with a clear function and relationship. If something fails, an engineer can trace the fault. Cause and effect are predictable, even if the system is intricate. Complexity, however, lives in a different world. A rainforest is complex. A human organization is complex. A geopolitical situation, a marketplace, a digital ecosystem, these are all complex systems. In complexity, the relationships between elements are dynamic and interdependent. Cause and effect are not linear. Patterns emerge from interactions, not from design. Small actions can have disproportionate consequences. In a complicated environment, we can plan, predict, and control. In a complex one, we must probe, sense, and respond. This distinction is crucial because it determines how we lead. When we treat complexity as if it were merely complicated, we rely on tools that were never meant for this terrain. Detailed Gantt charts, rigid governance, exhaustive risk registers. These are not bad tools. They are simply inadequate for non-linear systems. As Dave Snowden, creator of the Cinefin framework, remind us, complexity requires a different logic, one where experimentation, feedback, and adaptive leadership replace prediction and control. Traditional project management assumes a world of stability and predictability. It's built on the idea that we can define a scope, control change, and manage outcomes through structure and discipline. But complexity undermines these assumptions in three key ways. The first one, uncertainty is inherent, not reducible. In complex systems, we can never have full visibility. The future emerges from countless interactions between people, technologies, and external forces. Trying to predict every outcome creates an illusion of control, no real understanding. Second key way, linear thinking doesn't fit non-linear dynamics. When A no longer reliably causes B, traditional risk analysis and planning tools struggle. You can't extrapolate the future from the past when the underlying systems keep evolving. Yeah, and then in third place, people are adaptive agents, not controllable components. In human systems, individuals interpret, learn, and adapt. Their behavior can't be fully scripted or standardized. This is what makes organizations alive, but also unpredictable. So, when leaders double down on control, demanding more reporting, more compliance, more certainty, they often make things worse. They slow learning, stifle initiative, and overload teams. The antidote is not less discipline, but a different kind of discipline, one centered on sense making, experimentation, and trust. I would like to now make sure we understand how complexity can be led. Yeah, if we accept that complexity cannot be managed in the traditional sense, what does it mean to lead within it? Leading with complexity is about shifting our focus from control to conditions. A good leader doesn't try to dictate outcomes. Instead, they shape the environment so that positive outcomes are more likely to emerge. They do this through behaviors that foster learning, adaptation, and alignment. Let's break down 4 key capabilities that enable leaders to thrive in complex environments. The first one is sense making. Sense making is the art of understanding what's really happening, collectively, continuously, and humbly. In complex situations, no single person holds the full picture. Leaders must create mechanisms for distributed sense making, listening to multiple perspectives, encouraging open dialogue, and combining local insights into shared understanding. Ask questions like, what patterns are we noticing? What signals might we be missing? What's surprising us? Leaders who practice sense making create organizations that see reality more clearly, not as they wish it to be, but as it is. Then we have experimentation and adaptation. In complexity, we can't predict which solutions will work. Therefore, we must experiment safely and learn fast. Rather than designing the perfect plan, leaders create safe-to-fail experiments. These are small, reversible action that test hypotheses and generate feedback. The goal is not to eliminate uncertainty, but to learn from it. For example, instead of implementing a massive process overhaul, a team might pilot it in one function and observe the effects. If it works, amplify. If it fails, dampen. The iterative mindset is closer to biology than engineering. It's about evolution, not execution. Then we have empowerment and trust. Complexity demands distributed intelligence. Decisions need to be made where the information resides, often far from the top. This means empowering teams to act autonomously within clear boundaries. Leaders set intent, purpose, and principles, and then trust their teams to adapt tactics as needed. This is disciplined empowerment. The military concept of mission command capture it well. Communicate the why, not the how. The front line, or in our case, the project team, uses judgment to respond dynamically. Simon Sinek, the leadership author, keeps telling us exactly this. Trust is the lubricant of complex systems. Without it, communication slows, fear grows, and adaptive capacity disappears. Then we have emotional resilience and reflection. Living in complexity can be emotionally demanding. Ambiguity, shifting priorities, and partial visibility can make even experienced professionals feel anxious. That's why emotional regulation and reflection are essential leadership practices. Leaders who pause, reflect, and stay grounded provide psychological safety for their teams. they model curiosity instead of panic, humility instead of defensiveness. Reflection turns experience into learning. And in complex environment, learning is our most powerful competitive advantage. Okay, so there are something we can do, yeah, and I'm going to provide a few practical strategies, 5 practical strategies for leading within complexity. So, how can we translate these ideas into daily practice? Yeah, let's go with these 5 practical approaches. Number 1, shift from prediction to preparation. Instead of trying to forecast every risk, invest in building adaptive capacity. Flexible teams, modular architectures, and resilient processes that can absorb change. Number 2, use narrative and story as a data source. In complexity, not all knowledge is quantitative. Stories from the field often reveal emerging patterns faster than dashboards. 3, design for feedback. Create systems that allow rapid sensing of what's working and what isn't. Regular retrospectives, stakeholder mapping, and informal pulse checks are vital. 4, simplify, but don't oversimplify. Strive for clarity, no false certainty. When communicating, acknowledge ambiguity, but help your team understand what's stable and what's fluid. 5, model learning behavior. Admit what you don't know. Celebrate small experiments. Share what failed and why. This normalizes adaptation as part of progress. Complexity reward organizations that are alive to learning. At the heart of this transformation is a mindset shift, from control to curiosity. When leaders approach complexity with curiosity, they ask better questions. They listen more deeply. They focus less on proving and more on improving. Curiosity turns uncertainty into a source of energy rather than fear. It makes team creative, not paralyzed. It invites innovation, not compliance. But curiosity also requires courage. The courage to admit that we don't have all the answers, that our maps might be incomplete, and that progress comes through iteration. As Margaret Whitley famously said, leadership is in the capacity to hold a system in the presence of complexity, uncertainty, and paradox, and still move forward with hope. That's the essence of leading with complexity. Finally, I would like to discuss a framework that could help you to deal with complexity, the Scrum framework. I'm a certified Scrum Master myself, and I can confirm that this really works. Scrum is a lightweight framework that helps people, teams, and organizations generate value through adaptive solution for complex problems. In a nutshell, Scrum requires a Scrum Master to foster an environment where a product owner orders the work for a complex problem into a product backlog. The Scrum team turns a selection of the work into an increment of value during a sprint. The Scrum team and its stakeholders inspect the results and adjust for the next sprint. And repeat. Scrum is founded on empiricism and lean thinking. Empiricism asserts that knowledge comes from experience and making decisions based on what is observed. Lean thinking reduces waste and focuses on the essentials. Scrum employs an iterative, incremental approach to optimize predictability and to control risk. Scrum engages a group of people who collectively have all the skills and expertise to do the work and share or acquire such skills as needed. Scrum combines 4 formal events for inspection and adaptation within a containing event, the sprint. These events work because they implement the empirical Scrum pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Let's pause for a moment and reflect. Think about the last project or initiative you were involved in that felt complex. Maybe it was a digital transformation, a merger, or a safety-critical engineering program. Ask yourself, how much of our effort went into trying to control the uncontrollable? How much time did we spend reacting to surprises that were almost inevitable? How comfortable were we with no knowing? Now imagine instead, a culture that embraces uncertainty as a given, a team where people are encouraged to explore, share early insights, and adapt continuously. What will change? Meetings will sound different. Reporting will be less about justification and more about learning. Leaders will ask, what are we noticing instead of, are we on plan? And perhaps, most importantly, people will feel trusted. That's the shift we are talking about, from managing complexity to leading within it. It's not an excuse to abandon structure or discipline. It's an invitation to practice a more human, adaptive form of leadership, one that matches the world we live in. Okay, I think we are nearly there. We are going to close this episode. So, can we really manage complexity? Perhaps not in the traditional sense, but we can learn to lead within it by fostering sense-making, experimentation, trust, and reflection. The world isn't getting simpler. Our projects, our organizations, our societies are becoming more interconnected, dynamic, and unpredictable. That's not a problem to fear. It's an opportunity to evolve. As leaders, our job is not to eliminate uncertainty, but to help our teams dance with it, to create the conditions where emergence can work in our favor. So, the next time you face complexity, remember, you don't have to control it. You just have to stay curious, stay connected, and keep learning. Thank you for listening to The Critical Path. Until next time, stay curious, stay reflective. Thanks for listening to The Critical Path, project management and leadership in complex environments. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow or rate the show on Spotify and share it with colleagues who work where reliability matters most. See you on the next episode of The Critical Path.